So obviously you've been making a lot of content over lockdown, but you've been making your own content for your own YouTube channel for quite a long time. And what made you think I really need to start making my own content, and kind of how did you go about getting started?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think the whole digital space for wildlife at least is a little bit more new than in general, because the whole YouTuber, classic YouTuber, they've kind of been around for a while. And actually I should have kept it going at a high pace from early on. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I started making these absolutely awful YouTube videos, horrendous, absolutely awful. But
you've taken those offline now, have you?
Yeah, oh yeah, they've gone. You will never see them again. Oh, thank goodness. But at that time, 5 years ago, they were getting about 4,000 or 5,000 views.
Oh wow!
I know. I wish I'd kept it up, really, but it was then even as important to kind of use that space, because it's such a great one. Now, of course, it's changed massively, as it's kind of so diluted, and it's so competitive, and the content that you put on YouTube now is high quality content that's visually strong. It has a strong story, and the characters in that YouTube space are enormous, and you're competing with big organizations and companies as well now. So it has changed, but still a powerful tool. And actually, I say this quite a lot, bit of a broken record, but the importance of making your own content at an early stage in your career is huge. My first job on CBBC came through my YouTube channel, one of those rubbish videos. So and as much as I deleted them, for street cred reasons, it was actually really important. And they spotted something I posted on YouTube, and then I went in for an audition, and then got the job through that way. So it's very, very important. And it's the way you create digital content is also changing massively. So I think I moved off of YouTube for a while, and now a lot of my focus is looking at how you can use Instagram and Twitter and Facebook differently, because they're very different platforms, but you can use them all together as a nice package, if that makes sense, so that they all have their different uses, and they are different tools to tell different types of stories.
And I was going to say, so we had some talent managers on here. God, I think it was back in March actually, and they were saying that not just for presenters, but any type of kind of emerging talent, or anyone that's looking for a job in wildlife, creating your own content and having a kind of online profile of, if you're a cinematographer, examples of your work is such a powerful tool to kind of reach potential employers, essentially. So
absolutely,
you need to really be thinking about, practice in your own time what you're hoping to do in your career. So
absolutely,
it's good advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And presenting is one thing. If you pick up a camera and you talk to yourself all day long about something you're really passionate about, you're only going to get really good at it. And if somebody spots it, well, that's brilliant. But it can only be beneficial to invest that time. And as you say, different people with different roles, that applies to everyone. And I think this way of thinking, to present yourself as a brand in all its entirety across all those platforms, is super important. And I'm not saying you have to be striving for 100,000 followers in a month, or tapping into algorithms, although they are important. But it's a case of taking who you are and what your important messages are, and conveying that in that space. Yeah,
absolutely. So how do you go about sourcing, or like thinking of topics to talk about? So whatever platform you're thinking about, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, how do you think about those topics and think about really engaging stories that you think your audiences on those platforms will engage with?
It's an interesting question, just because I think a large part of my own projects have come through things I'm passionate about. Just to give an example, there was a digital series on Facebook that I did the year before last, called Wild Ocean Week. And the thing about Facebook, and the thing about social media generally, is it's high turnover, isn't it? High turnover. People want things quickly. They want things that are visually strong, and things that perhaps that they can even connect with. And so the year before last, I did a Wild Ocean Week, 7 days across the UK, to document as much marine life as possible in that time. And it was absolutely awesome, because within that I could say, right, I want to look at seals on the Farne Islands. And then for me personally, I think there's many issues around seals, not just in how fantastic they are as our, charismatic marine mammals here in the UK, but actually their relationship with aquaculture, and I included conservation stories about that. And if you're passionate about something, or if there's something that catches your eye, you should do your research and really look at more into that project or that idea or that story, and figure out a way of telling that story through a video if that's something you want to do. But anyway, in this week, for me, that the main focus was to raise money for charity, but actually also show how much you can see in a very short amount of time. And it led to the giant jellyfish. I talked about jellyfish all the time. It's getting a bit ridiculous now, but it's a giant barrel jellyfish that it finished with, which was great because it went viral and rah, rah, rah. And at the back of it, we created a citizen science project called the Great British Jelly Watch Weekend to get people to understand more about the numbers of jellyfish on our coasts. So, I mean, half of it comes from this passion and this, interest in stories that you think are important to tell for you. And I think if you're anyone watching that wants to get into presenting, I think that's massively important. It all starts with you and who you are and what you're passionate about. And then I guess just some of it's winging it, because I didn't know that jellyfish was, I shouldn't say that, should I? But I couldn't have said I'd come across a beautiful barrel jellyfish like I did, but I'd happened to do that, and it kind of added to the project. I shouldn't really say winging it, should I? But but I mean, okay, to give you an example, the salmon farming story, I came across that in an article. I thought it was really interesting, the whole understanding of the impact of salmon farms here in the UK and globally. And so I just, did lots of research, lots of reading into it, chatting to people about it, trying to figure out a narrative within that, and putting that together in a bit of a one-piece film or documentary, really.